Yeah, picture this for a moment. A huge sailing ship, masts towering way up, hitting the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah.
It actually happened just this past Saturday.
It's pretty shocking when you hear it like that.
It is, and our sources, well, they're detailing this really unexpected incident. It involved the Mexican Navy's training ship, the Cuauhtémoc.
Right.
And sadly, it wasn't just a minor bump. We're talking reports of fatalities and quite a few injuries.
Yeah, the human cost is definitely the most striking part right from the start.
So for this deep dive, we really want to unpack what our sources tell us. What happened, maybe get into the why and what the implications are based on the info we have so far.
Absolutely. And the vessel itself, the Cuauhtémoc, it's quite something. Not your average cargo ship, no. It's a nearly 300-foot-long steel-hulled bark, like a traditional tall ship, 3 masts.
Wow.
And those masts, they reach up almost 160 feet.
160 feet. So you imagine that hitting a bridge.
Exactly. When something that tall and that, well, solid hits the fixed structure like the Brooklyn Bridge, the impact, it's bound to be serious. And, as we know now, tragically so.
Right. The sources put the time around 8:3 p.m. Eastern, Saturday night.
Okay.
And those injury numbers, initially I saw reports saying 19 injured. But that number, it seems to have climbed. Now looking like at least 22, and some were in critical condition.
That fluctuation, it really speaks to the immediate chaos of something like this. Assessing everything on a ship that size in that situation, it takes time.
And the worst part, we have confirmation.
Yeah.
2 Mexican Navy crew members died in the incident.
Just awful. So, yeah, our mission here is to piece together the sequence of events, look into the potential causes.
Mechanical failure.
Navigation.
Right, what led up to it.
Yeah.
And maybe think about what this tells us, about ships operating in these really complex environments.
Okay, so this ship, the Cuauhtémoc, you mentioned it's a training vessel.
Yeah, and it wasn't just out for a random sail. It was on a specific goodwill tour. It sailed from Acapulco back in April, heading for Iceland next. The whole mission, according to the Navy, was about, exalting the seafaring spirit, strengthening naval education.
Kind of like a floating ambassador role.
Exactly, and carrying a message of peace and goodwill, which is, well, it's quite a contrast, isn't it?
It really is. This mission of peace and then this violent collision happening in a major city harbor.
Yeah.
And these training ships, they often serve that dual purpose, teaching cadets traditional skills like handling sails.
Which involves going up the masts.
Precisely. Reports mention sailors were actually positioned on the masts when the collision happened.
Oh, wow.
Think about that vulnerability. You're up there maybe 100 feet or more, learning the ropes, quite literally.
And then impact.
Those huge masts designed to catch the wind, meeting solid steel and stone. It becomes incredibly dangerous, incredibly fast.
The accounts from the scene, they're really harrowing. People hearing the masts snap, seeing people, hanging from the wreckage up there.
Just unimaginable.
And then down on the Pier 16, you had this really strange mix. People apparently cheering and applauding when survivors were brought off.
Sort of spontaneous relief, maybe?
Yeah, I think so. But then also just raw grief. An injured woman weeping as she was carried away, other crew members with bandages, visible blood. It really brings it home.
It absolutely does. It's easy to focus on the ship, the bridge, the mechanics.
Right.
But these details, they remind you of the human element. These are people, many likely young trainees, caught in something terrifying. That reaction from the onlookers, the applause, it kind of speaks to that shared shock and empathy, doesn't it?
It really does. So, okay, the big question then.
Yeah.
Why? Why did this happen?
$1 million question.
Yeah. The first thing that came out, Mayor Adams mentioned a potential loss of power.
Okay, so power failure is on the table early on.
And then NYPD's Special Operations Chief, Aaron Bowles, he mentioned some mechanical issues. A bit vague, but points in a similar direction.
Right. Suggests the ship might not have been fully under control. How often does a ship like that just lose all power? Is that common?
Well, common is probably the wrong word, but it definitely happens. Modern ships have backups, of course, but a sudden, complete failure, electrical or mechanical, it's possible.
And for a sailing vessel like the Cuauhtémoc, even if it has engines, losing power could be critical, right? Especially in tight waters with currents.
Absolutely. It would affect any engine maneuvering, potentially steering systems if they rely on power.
Which brings us to another point. A senior city official apparently suggested the ship was moving in the, quote, wrong direction.
Meaning not where it intended to be.
Yeah, implying it wasn't actually trying to go under the Brooklyn Bridge right then, and maybe currents pushed it off course.
Okay, so navigation comes into play. Were they where they thought they were?
That's a huge factor. Navigating a big sailing ship, even with engine assist, in a place like New York Harbor, it's complex. Currents near bridges are notoriously strong.
And then there's what the captain reportedly told investigators.
Ooh, what was that?
That they lost steering because of a rudder malfunction after losing power.
Ah, okay. So power loss first, then a rudder issue. That connects a few dots.
If you can't steer a ship that size.
You're essentially drifting, yeah. Especially if the current catches you. That makes the wrong direction idea seem more plausible, doesn't it? It wasn't intentional, but a result of losing control.
We have to keep stressing, though, this is all preliminary.
Absolutely. Early reports, snippets from officials, the full investigation is still ongoing.
And there was a tugboat involved, wasn't there? Seen in some videos nearby.
Yes. The role of the tugboat is another piece of the puzzle investigators will be looking at very closely.
Like, was it helping? Was the help adequate? Could there have been issues there, too?
Exactly. Was it connected? Was it providing enough power or control given the conditions? Was communication clear? These are all standard questions in this kind of investigation. Maneuvering a large sailing vessel, even with a tug, is challenging.
And the fact that they plan to have city divers inspect the rudder?
Right. That tells you they're taking that reported rudder malfunction very seriously as a potential key cause.
And overseeing the whole thing now is the National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB.
Which is standard procedure for a major incident like this. Their involvement signals how seriously it's being taken.
And they really dig deep, don't they?
They do. The NTSB has a strong reputation. They'll look at everything: maintenance logs, crew training, qualifications, recordings of available, weather, currents, the tug's role, the whole picture.
And their findings often lead to changes, right? Safety recommendations.
Often, yes. Their goal isn't just blame, it's prevention. To understand the chain of events and figure out how to stop it from happening again, that can impact rules and practices across the maritime world.
Okay, shifting to the damage. The bridge itself. Thankfully, no structural damage.
That's huge news for the city, a massive relief. The bridge was reopened relatively quickly.
But the Quatamoc, not so lucky.
No. Sources say significant damage to the masts and rigging, which, for a sailing ship, is critical.
Right, it's its whole purpose.
Pretty much. And the Mexican Navy has confirmed the ship's cruise is on hold for the time being. That strongly suggests the damage is serious. Repairing those massive masts and complex rigging isn't a simple job.
So what happened right after the crew stayed on the ship overnight?
Yeah, reports indicate they spent Saturday night on board. Must have been incredibly difficult. Somber.
Absolutely. And now the focus seems to be on the crew's welfare.
As it should be. Getting them support, getting them off the ship if they want, arranging repatriation to Mexico for those who need it.
And also, sadly, repatriating the bodies of the 2 crew members who died. The city's medical examiner is handling that.
It really underscores the international aspect. A Mexican Navy vessel, crew from Mexico, in a U.S. harbor. It requires careful coordination.
Deputy Mayor Daughtry called the crew good soldiers.
Yeah, I saw that. It kind of captures the sense of duty and, well, the tragic circumstances they found themselves in. They were on a mission of training and goodwill.
And ended up in this devastating accident. This is a very stark reminder, isn't it? This beautiful traditional ship, a symbol of goodwill, colliding with this massive modern landmark.
It really is. It highlights the inherent risks. Even in what might seem like routine operations, you have these huge vessels, complex waterways, busy traffic, infrastructure.
Things can go wrong, even with technology, even with training.
That's a really crucial takeaway, I think. Navigating a ship like the Quatamoc, especially a sailing vessel with its unique handling, in a port like New York, it's demanding. You've got currents, wind, other ships.
And the ever-present possibility of mechanical failure.
Exactly. This incident seems to show how quickly things can unravel when multiple factors potentially align. Maybe power loss, maybe a steering issue, maybe strong currents, maybe navigational challenges.
Do you think this could lead to changes? In procedures, maybe? Or training for these kinds of vessels in busy harbors?
It's definitely possible. The NTSB investigation is key here. If they identify specific shortcomings, maybe in training for these specific conditions, or navigational aids, or tugboat protocols, they'll likely issue recommendations.
To prevent something similar down the line.
Precisely. Understanding exactly how this happened, step by step, could lead to valuable lessons for maritime safety globally.
Okay, so let's try and pull this together. Last Saturday evening, The Mexican Navy training ship Catamac hits the Brooklyn Bridge.
A major collision.
Tragically, 2 crew members lost their lives, over 20 injured.
Yeah.
The initial indications, they point towards a loss of power, then possibly a steering failure. Maybe complicated by where the ship was, the currents.
All contributing factors being looked at, but again, that's the preliminary picture.
Right. The full, detailed story,
Hmm.
that's going to come from the NTSB investigation. We need to wait for their findings for a definitive account.
Absolutely crucial to wait for the full investigation before drawing firm conclusions.
So it leaves you thinking, doesn't it? We have all this amazing technology, complex operations all over the globe, but what does an unexpected event like this really tell us about the risks that are just always there in maritime activities, even the ones with the best intentions, like a goodwill tour? How does something like this change how we think about human skill, technological reliability, and just the sheer power and unpredictability of the sea and the environment around it?
It's a sobering question. It definitely pushes beyond the immediate shock of the headlines, makes you consider those deeper vulnerabilities and complexities. A lot to think about.